Imagine a nation so small, you could drive around it in less than an hour. A nation so wealthy, its citizens paid no taxes, enjoyed free healthcare, and lived in luxury. A nation that invested in skyscrapers abroad, owned an airline, and was once the richest country per capita in the world. And yet, today, that same nation is bankrupt, scarred, and forgotten. This is not the story of a global empire. This is the story of Nauru, the island that flew too close to the sun and fell. Nauru's story begins not with its people, but with its soil. For thousands of years, seabirds flocked to this tiny island in the Pacific, leaving behind droppings that hardened into phosphate. This mineral, rich in nutrients, would one day become the foundation of modern agriculture. In the early 20th century, colonial powers discovered Nauru's hidden treasure. The British, Germans, and Australians quickly realized the island's potential. Phosphate was gold dust for farmers, and Nauru was sitting on mountains of it. Mining began, and the island's destiny was forever changed. By 1968, Nauru gained independence. Unlike many small nations, it had something extraordinary: control over its phosphate reserves. The government nationalized the industry, and suddenly, money poured in. For a nation of just 10,000 people, the wealth was staggering. Citizens enjoyed free education, free healthcare, and no taxes. The government invested abroad, buying skyscrapers in Melbourne, luxury hotels, and even an airline. Nauruans traveled the world, indulging in luxuries unimaginable for such a small nation. By the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Nauru was no longer just a wealthy island. It was a symbol of what sudden riches could create. For a nation of only 10,000 people, the scale of prosperity was unimaginable. The government's coffers overflowed with phosphate revenue, and the islanders lived lives that seemed more fitting for the citizens of global superpowers than for a tiny dot in the Pacific Ocean. At its peak, Nauruans were among the wealthiest people on Earth. The government invested heavily abroad, buying assets that would make headlines. In Melbourne, Australia, they built the Nauru House, a skyscraper that stood as a monument to their ambition. For a small island nation, owning a tower in one of the world's great cities was more than an investment. It was a statement. Nauru had arrived. The island even had its own airline, Air Nauru. With a fleet of modern jets, it connected the island to destinations across the Pacific. For a country so small, the idea of running an international airline was almost surreal. But for Nauru, it was normal. Citizens flew abroad for shopping trips, medical care, and holidays. The world was open to them, and they embraced it. At home, life was equally extravagant. Families built modern houses, bought cars, and filled their homes with imported goods. Nauruans traveled abroad frequently, indulging in luxuries unimaginable for such a small nation. The island's wealth was not just financial, it was cultural. Nauruans saw themselves as global citizens, connected to the wider world in ways few small nations ever achieve. But beneath the glittering surface, cracks were forming. The phosphate reserves were finite. Every ton mined brought the island closer to depletion. The government's investments, while ambitious, were risky. Some succeeded, but many failed. Corruption spread and mismanagement became common. Nauru was living on borrowed time, but few realized it. The wealth seemed endless, and the people believed it would last forever. For viewers in the UK, Nauru's story echoes the rise of industrial Britain, a nation built on coal and steel, only to face decline when resources ran out. For viewers in the UAE, the parallels are even sharper. Oil wealth transformed the desert into skyscrapers, malls, and global hubs. But unlike Nauru, the UAE invested in diversification, building industries beyond oil. Nauru did not, and that difference would prove fatal. The government believed the phosphate would last for generations. They spent lavishly, confident that the money would keep flowing. But the reserves were shrinking, and the investments were failing. The Nauru House, once a symbol of ambition, became a burden. Air Nauru, once a proud airline, struggled to stay afloat. The island's wealth was slipping away, but few wanted to admit it. By the 1990s, the truth could no longer be ignored. The phosphate was running out, the money was gone, and the island was facing a crisis unlike any it had ever known. The richest country in the world was about to become one of the poorest. The fall of Nauru was coming, and it would be brutal. By the 1990s, the dream was over. The phosphate that had built Nauru's fortune was running out. The mines that once fueled prosperity now scarred the island. The wealth that had seemed endless was gone, and the richest country per capita in the world was about to become one of the poorest. Phosphate reserves dwindled, and with them the government's revenue. Investments abroad, skyscrapers, hotels, airlines failed to deliver returns. Corruption and mismanagement drained the treasury. What had once been a paradise of wealth was now a nation staring into the abyss. The mining left scars deeper than financial ruin. Over 80% of Nauru's surface was rendered uninhabitable. The once lush interior became a wasteland of jagged limestone pinnacles. Agriculture was impossible. The island's environment was destroyed, and its people were left with little land to live on. With no industry left, Nauru turned to desperate measures. The government began selling passports to foreigners, often linked to criminal networks. Offshore banks sprang up, many accused of money laundering. These schemes brought short-term cash, but long-term shame. Nauru's reputation collapsed alongside its economy. Eventually, Nauru leased its land to Australia as a refugee detention center. In exchange for aid, the island became a holding ground for asylum seekers. For many, this was the final humiliation. A nation that had once been the richest per capita, reduced to renting its land for survival. For the people of Nauru, the fall was devastating. Families who had once lived in comfort now faced poverty. Health declined. Obesity and diabetes became rampant, fueled by imported processed foods. The island's social fabric unraveled. The dream of endless wealth had turned into a nightmare. For viewers in the UK, Nauru's collapse echoes the decline of coal towns, once thriving, now abandoned. For viewers in the UAE, the warning is sharper. Resource wealth can vanish overnight. Without diversification, even the richest nations can fall. Nauru's fate is a mirror held up to the world. From paradise to poverty, Nauru's fall was swift and brutal. The island that once symbolized wealth became a cautionary tale. But the story does not end here. What happened after the fall, and what lessons the world can learn, is perhaps the most important chapter of all. Today, Nauru is a nation struggling to survive. With its phosphate reserves exhausted, the island has little industry. Its environment is devastated, its land scarred by decades of mining. Agriculture is nearly impossible. The people rely heavily on imports for food, fuel, and medicine. Aid from Australia and other partners keeps the nation afloat, but independence feels fragile. The collapse brought not only poverty but also a health crisis. With local agriculture destroyed, Nauruans turned to imported processed foods. Obesity rates soared. Diabetes became rampant. Life expectancy fell. The wealth that once promised prosperity left behind a legacy of illness and hardship. Australia's refugee detention deal became Nauru's lifeline. In exchange for hosting asylum seekers, the island received aid. But this arrangement came at a cost. Nauru became known not for its wealth, but for its role in a controversial system. For many, this was the final humiliation. A nation that had once been the richest per capita, reduced to renting its land for survival. Nauru's story is not just about one island. It is a warning to nations everywhere. Wealth without sustainability leads to collapse. For the UK, the lesson echoes the decline of coal towns, once thriving, now abandoned. For the UAE, the warning is sharper. Oil wealth can vanish overnight. Diversification is essential. Without it, even the richest nations can fall. Nauru is a mirror held up to the world. It shows us what happens when short-term wealth blinds a nation to long-term sustainability. It shows us the dangers of corruption, mismanagement, and dependence on a single resource. And it shows us that no empire, no fortune, no nation is immune to collapse.